Jupiter starts its retrograde motion on July 29th, and today I discuss the impact of that on all of us. Hello everybody, I'm Tina Chaudhary. Welcome to my channel and a very warm namaste. Jupiter will start its retrograde motion on July 29th, and it will stay in retrograde motion until November 23rd, 24th of the same year, 2022. So the retrograde motion stays for about 119 days. Now, retrograde Jupiter is not a very rare event at all. It's actually an annual event. So Jupiter stays in the same zodiac sign for about a year, about 13 months, and it goes retrograde once during that time. So about once a year Jupiter goes retrograde, and it usually stays retrograde for about 4 months, about 119, 120 days. Now right now Jupiter is transiting in the zodiac sign of Pisces, and it's in the nakshatra of Uttarabhadrapad. Now during the whole retrograde motion of this 119 days, Jupiter will never move back into the prior sign of Aquarius. It's going to stay in Pisces, and it's also not going to change its nakshatra. So it's going to stay in the same nakshatra of Uttarabhadrapad, and it's also going to stay in the same zodiac sign of Pisces. Jupiter is in Pisces right now, and Jupiter owns Pisces. But Jupiter also owns another sign, that's Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the Mool Trikon sign of Jupiter. Now, I've explained the concept of a Mool Trikon sign in my previous video, but just to reiterate it, when a planet owns two different signs in the zodiac, it favors one sign over the other. Well, how does it favor it? Well, the Mool Trikon sign is where the planet gives its better or more powerful impacts or influences. Why? Because the Mool Trikon sign of the planet is where it's the office of that, or the working place of that planet. The other sign is considered to be the home of that planet. So when we go to work, we tend to give it our best shot. We work harder. We do whatever we're expected to do at work. When we come home, we take a little bit more laid back approach. And hence, this is what Jupiter is going to do. In Sagittarius, it gives us more powerful influences, because that's the work of Sagittarius, of Jupiter. When it's in Pisces, it's still going to give its benefic results, but not as powerfully as it would if it was in Sagittarius. But it's still benefic, and it's still going to give its powerful results in Pisces. So what are the impacts that Jupiter retrogrades in Pisces and in Uttarabhadrapad and never leaves these two signs? So let's take a look at what Pisces means. Well, Pisces is the 12th zodiac sign, so it means losses and expenses. But at the intrinsic level, it means letting go. Pisces is also the house that denotes sleep. Sleep is what is our subconscious mind. When we're sleeping, we're in a subconscious state. And so when we dream, we're dreaming about our innermost fears, our innermost feelings and desires sometimes. So Pisces represents our innermost feelings and desires. Uttarabhadrapad is the nakshatra that's ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the ruler of our karma. Saturn is also working very hard at the lowest level. Saturn has nothing to do with ego. So when Jupiter retrogrades in Pisces and in the nakshatra that's ruled by Saturn, it's telling us to go deep within our psyche and to look within ourselves, analyze within ourselves into our subconscious mind, our desires, our fears, and face them honestly, truthfully. Take a step back and look within ourselves. Look at us, look at each one of us within ourselves. Analyze ourselves and figure out what is the karma that we need to do in order to find that eternal happiness. And the number one significator of Pisces is spirituality. Spirituality is what gives us the eternal happiness, not the momentary shallow happiness, but the eternal happiness and peace. So we need to step back, look within ourselves, review and analyze within ourselves. What is it that's going to give us eternal happiness, permanent happiness, the deep happiness? And do the karma. Work hard at doing the karma. That's going to give us that. But the main thing we need to do is let go of our ego at this time. This is not the time to focus on our ego and material desires. This is the time to let go of our desires and focus on what we need to do to find the happiness, to attain spiritual happiness, happiness of the soul. And that's why Jupiter is not leaving the nakshatra of Saturn. It's not leaving the house of Pisces. And there's one more aspect we need to take into consideration, is that Saturn is retrograde right now, and it's going to move back into Capricorn shortly. So when Saturn goes back into Capricorn, with its third aspect, it's going to be looking at or aspecting Jupiter in Pisces. So not only is Jupiter retrograde, but Saturn is going to aspect it via the third aspect. So when Jupiter is retrograde, it tends to slow down its impact or slow down its effect of happiness giving. So the happiness is kind of slowed down. Things just kind of go into slow motion. So whatever the good benefits that Jupiter is giving or gives normally in the direct motion tend to slow down a little bit. And then here comes the Saturn impact or aspect, and Saturn already is the significator of everything slowing down. So generally things are going to become very slow. The good positive things in our life that we were expecting are going to slow down quite a bit. You know, if you were expecting things to happen very quickly, you know, you might be faced with a little obstacles, little hurdles, good things in life. You may be faced with obstacles, hurdles. You may feel like every time I try to do something, I just don't get it fast enough. So that's going to be the effect of a retrograde Jupiter Saturn aspect, generally for everyone. You know, your relationships, little challenge. You know, the problem's been that Ketu has been in Libra, and Libra rules our relationships, and Ketu is the master separator of relationships, breaker of relationships. And now here's Jupiter not able to give its full benefit results. You know, it's kind of slowed down, and Saturn aspected it. So relationships are going to have just suffer a little bit. So once you become aware of these issues, I think you should take good care of your relationships. You know, make sure that you keep yourself happy. Don't fall for this energy. Don't let the energy take you over. Make sure that now that you've become aware of it, you work on your own energy also. Now the remedy, I know one viewer keeps saying, give me remedies, give us remedies. So what are the remedies that you can do? Well, you know, staying close to your dharma, your guru, your spirituality, whatever faith you believe in is always the best remedy for Jupiter. Because Jupiter represents our spirituality, our dharma. So regardless of what faith you follow, stay close to that. You know, make sure you get that energy from that faith, because like I said, Jupiter represents our faith. So make sure you follow the faith. Now, I don't like to give out remedies relating to a particular faith. So because, you know, I have viewers that follow all kinds of faith. So whatever it is that you follow, make sure you stay true to that. You can do mantra practice if based on whatever faith you are following. Make sure you stay close to that. And one of the things that always works really well is meditation. Now, meditation can be all kinds. You can think of your guru, dharma, or you can just sit out in this universe, in this energy, and just kind of absorb the positive energy that the universe has to offer. It's a wonderful experience. I do it very frequently, so it kind of changes my energy around. So, you know, when you're feeling a little down, you feel like your energy's down, it's always a good idea to come out in this universe. The universe always has positive energy to give you. Wonderful remedy for that. Now, I'm not going to explain what is a retrograde planet, because I did that, I believe, pretty well in the last video that I made a few weeks ago when Saturn went retrograde. So if you want to understand what is a retrograde planet, you can watch that video, which is the Saturn retrograde video. I will attach a link to that video in my description box. I also will add it at the end screen on this video. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it, because Saturn's going to stay retrograde for the whole period, the current period as well. So those predictions still apply. And in fact, a lot of the predictions that I made in that video are happening right now. So you can see how those are very accurate. So if you haven't watched the Saturn retrograde video, please do watch it. But today I'm going to instead explain to you what does the effect of a retrograde Jupiter in your birth chart mean for the individual. So as I mentioned before, that Jupiter stays retrograde for about 4 months of the year, which would mean that 1/3 of the world's population has a retrograde Jupiter in their natal birth chart. So today I'd like to explain what is the impact of a retrograde Jupiter in your own birth chart mean? What is the energy that it carries with you? Because there's a lot of misconception about retrograde planets in your birth chart. A lot of people think that it's a bad thing, or it carries negative energy, or there's misconceptions about retrograde planets. So in order to understand a retrograde Jupiter in our birth chart, we need to understand the significations of Jupiter. So Jupiter signifies wisdom, teachers, knowledge, our education, our love life, our children, a general happiness in life, the prosperity we get in our lives, also the general feeling of happiness, the state of happiness we're going to experience in this life. And above all, it also signifies our dharma, our gurus, and the level of spirituality we're going to experience in this life. So these are the general significations of Jupiter. Now it's very important to understand clear up one misconception. The misconception is that Jupiter always gives everybody positive results. Generally, Jupiter does give positive significations or impacts to everybody, but a ill-placed or a negatively placed Jupiter in somebody's chart it's very possible for Jupiter to give really bad results as well. Let's talk about the energy of retrograde in this respect. Retrograde generally means to move backwards. Moving backwards carries the energy of repeating something. You're repeating your steps where you move backwards, so you go back to where you were in the past. And so this carries the energy of a repeating your steps. So retrograde on your birth chart means to have the energy of repeating something. Now, why do you repeat something? Just think about it. The reason you repeat something is because you may review it and figure out that a correction needs to be made, or you need to perfect something or make it a little better. The retrograde planet carries the energy of review, correct, and repeat. So Jupiter retrograde in your chart will make you sit back and review something you have already done. It will make you correct your actions and then repeat something related to that. Let me give you an example if I've confused you. If you have a retrograde Jupiter, that impacts your fifth house, and the fifth house denotes education of a person, then you might start pursuing a specific line of education, realize that that's not the one for you, and then you go back and you change your line of education and you start a different line of study or education. So that's the exact impact that a retrograde Jupiter will have in your chart. It will make you do certain things twice because you realize that you may not have done it correctly the first time around. And also the reason that you may do it again is because you may feel that it was not perfectly done or correctly done. And hence, the retrograde Jupiter carries the energy of a review, a correction, and then repeating a certain action. I'm going to move on to predictions. My predictions are based on Vedic astrology, which is sidereal astrology, not Western or tropical astrology. They're also based on your ascendant sign. The ascendant sign is the sign that's in the first house of your birth chart. These are general predictions, and so actual predictions are always based on your own unique birth chart. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel, because there's lots of new exciting videos always coming up, so you make sure you get a notification of them as soon as they come up. If you like the video, give it a like, and if you want to put comments, please make sure you put comments. I love comments, and I try to respond to all my comments. I do take some time. I'm a little delayed on responses, but I do try to respond to all comments. And if you like the video, do share it with friends and family. One more thing is that I have my merchandise, which is the t-shirts, the Zodiac t-shirts, and there's a couple of people that they couldn't find where they were. So here's a picture. I'm showing you a picture of where you can find the t-shirts. It's right here. So this is where it is on the screen. You can see it. And this is where you can find the t-shirts if you want to purchase them. If you don't want to purchase them, that's fine. You can just click on them. And if you want to look at the art that the artist has created for me, that's wonderful too. Go ahead, look at it. But if you want to purchase them, that's where you can find them on the screen. Aries, Retrograde Jupiter is in your 12th house. Aries, Jupiter retrogrades in your 12th house, and Jupiter also rules your 9th house. The 12th house is a house of expenses and losses, and the 9th house is a house of luck. And so you may realize now that you have been spending or overspending in the last few months, and now you need to kind of step back and review your spending habits, take some corrective measures or actions regarding your expenses and spending. You may also experience a slowdown in your career and also in gains, monetary gains as well. Also, if you're doing any business with foreign entities, foreign companies, or anything to do with foreign, you may see a slowdown and experience a slowdown in response time or just relationship issues with anything foreign. Probably not a good time to make any new investment changes at this time too, because the house of expenses is being activated. If you have travel plans at this time or during this transit, you may realize that you may need to reschedule it, or you may have to make some changes in your travel plans, because both the 9th and the 12th house indicate travel, long distance travel or foreign travel. If you're a student or you're involved in education at this time, it's a good time for you to do that. Also, your focus will be good at this time. Any real estate matters that you deal with during this transit is also going to have very positive results for you. One of the main things that you need to watch out for is your relationship with your father, gurus, teachers, coaches, and mentors. That denotes the 9th house. Make sure you're in a very good place or relationship with them. Get their blessings at this time, because that unlocks the luck factor in your life at this time. The 4th house is being aspected, and that's your relationship with your mother as well. So make sure you're in a very good place, very good relationship with both your parents at this time, so you can get the positive impact of Jupiter in your life at this time. Taurus, Jupiter is retrograding in your 11th house. Taurus, Jupiter is the lord of your 11th house. The 11th house is the house of gains, network, and social circle, and wish fulfillment. But for Taurus, Jupiter is also the lord of the 8th house, and the 8th house is the house of obstacles and some hardships. So at this time when Jupiter goes retro, Taurus might feel that the gains and the monetary success that they were feeling for the last few months suddenly slows down at this time, and that they may have to work a lot more harder to see the financial success that they may be getting earlier the last few months, and now they're going to have to work harder for it, or there may be obstacles in the achievement of their financial success or career goals or their wishes and desires. This is also not a good time to make any investment changes or new investments, especially short-term investments. It's probably a better idea to wait until Jupiter goes in a direct motion back sometime in November. Jupiter is also asking that you review the relationships that you've had, or the way you've treated some of your relationships with your older siblings, your friends, your network circle, and make sure that if there's been any issues with them. If there have been, you need to review them and make corrections accordingly. It's time to be very patient with the relationships now, and make sure that you maintain all these relationships in a very positive way at this time. Now, whenever Jupiter goes retrograde in the 11th house, it's seen that some old friend from the past comes back into your life, or you may just hear from them. The aspects of Jupiter are very positive. So your relationship with your children is going to be very good. Your love relationship is going to be very good as well. If you're looking for love, it's a good time for that as well. And people that are involved in education, or they're getting educated at this time, your focus is going to be great, and you may have positive results at this time. For people that are married, you're going to get very good support from your spouse at this time as well. Gemini, Jupiter retrogrades in your 10th house. Gemini, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 10th house, and the 10th house denotes your career, but Jupiter also rules your 7th house, which is the house of marriage or your spouse. The 7th house also denotes how you are viewed by other people, or how you deal with people that you come across in your daily life. Now, as far as your career is concerned, and Jupiter going retrograde in there, you're going to feel as if nothing new is happening in your career, and things have just come to a standstill. What the retrograde Jupiter is trying to tell you is to review how you've handled your career in the last few months, and if you need to make any adjustments or changes to how you've handled it. Do you need to change your attitude? Is there something you forgot to do, or if there's something that you didn't do well, or you need to make any corrections or adjustments in all these things? It's time to be very respectful and supportive of your superiors at work at this time. Don't feel like nothing's happening in my job, so I'm just going to be laid back and do nothing. You need to be very respectful, be very supportive of their plans. It's a great time for your spouse's career at this time. They may see good financial results of their efforts. As far as if you're a business owner, you need to plan very carefully before you make any impulsive decisions regarding, growing your business or trying to do new things in your business. I would recommend that you wait till Jupiter goes into the direct motion. Don't try anything new at this time, but plan well. If you really must do something, make sure you have very good plans before you start making any decisions regarding your business. The aspects of Jupiter are very positive for you. They're aspecting your fourth house. The fourth house is your own happiness and the happiness at home. So you're going to be in a very happy situation at home. There may be celebrations at home. And if you have any real estate issues that you're taking care of, those will have positive results. Your financial situation stays positive, and if you had any health issues, you will improve. You'll start feeling better. Cancer, Jupiter retrogrades in your 9th house. Cancer, Jupiter is retrograding in your 9th house, and it's also the lord of your 6th house. Now, the 9th house is the house of luck. It's also the house that denotes your gurus, coaches, mentors, and your father. So the retrograde in the 9th house is actually giving you a chance to reevaluate or review any actions or your attitudes relating to your religious faith, your dharma, your spirituality, or your behavior with your father or your guru at this time. You need to review it to make sure that in the last few months, if you've had some actions or your attitude against all these attributes of the 9th house need a correction of some sort. Was there any behavioral issues or relationship issues with your coaches, your gurus, or your father that needs a correction at this time? Do you need to reevaluate your attitude towards your dharma or your faith? And so it's giving you a chance to correct those, make those corrections. Once you make those corrections, or you need to rethink and review them, and once you come to a final decision on how you want to be as far as these issues are concerned, it reactivates your luck factor. It's very important to reactivate your luck factor at this time because Jupiter also rules your 6th house. The 6th house denotes enemies, ill health, co-workers, legal matters. Now, once the luck factor is activated, these matters tend to get resolved. So your luck factor improves and gives you positive results in these areas. So you may feel like if you had some issues with coworkers, they tend to get resolved. And if you were suffering from ill health or you had some health issues, you may feel like your health improved at this time. The aspect of Jupiter on the 1st house gives you a very positive aura at this time. You may feel like you have very positive energy. You may feel happy. In fact, you should try to do that and stay happy. So it kind of keeps the luck activated at this time. Relationship with kids is very positive. Your love life is very positive at this time as well. If you're looking for love, it's a very positive time for that as well at this time. Leo, Jupiter retrogrades in your 8th house. Leo, Jupiter is retrograding in your 8th house, and it's also the lord of your 5th house. Generally, the 8th house is the least favored house, so Jupiter is not a very good planet for Leo. Because the 8th house denotes obstacles, struggles. It also denotes your in-laws. The 5th house denotes your children, your love life, and education. So all of these together, the 5th and the 8th, they denote lots of things to consider. Retrograde Jupiter is asking you to reflect back on the last few months to review if there was anything related to any of these significations that may still be left incomplete, or you need to complete it, or provide some closure to, or it needs to be corrected? Is any of these significations you feel, that you didn't handle well? And so you now need to review back and see if there's something else that you need to do to handle those issues that these two significations or these two houses represent. You may also feel that whatever you do at this time, there's so much obstruction or some difficulty crops up. Don't worry too much about it. The best thing you can do is to stay focused and be very patient, because the 8th house is a testing house. It tests your patience. So as long as you're very patient and you deal with the obstruction just goes away. The other remedy that you can do is the 5th and the 8th house together denote mantra practice. So regardless of what faith you practice, if you can remember the divine, do some mantra practice, or just think of the divine, the difficulties tend to kind of go away. Jupiter aspects the 4th house. So there's going to be happiness at home. You may be mentally feel very happy, peaceful. And so there may be celebrations or some religious celebrations in the house during this transit time. Financially, it's a good period because it aspects the 2nd house. But the 12th house also gets aspected. So it means that even though it's a financially very good time, it's also a very expensive time for you. So whatever income comes in, it's probably getting spent as well. So watch your expenses if that's a bother to you. But again, financially good, but also expensive time. And your home happiness is assured during this time. Virgo, Jupiter retrogrades in your 7th house. Jupiter retrograde in the 7th house is giving you a chance to review your relationships, marriage as well as business relationships, to see if they need to have any changes made, or if there's any corrections that need to be made in those relationships. Are you fully satisfied in how you've been dealing with them in the last few months? If you're not, then what are the changes that you need to make? You also need to review what do you need to change about yourself in order for people to perceive you or view you as you would like them to see you. Are you totally happy with others' perception of you? If not, what are the changes you need to make about that? The aspect on the 11th house means it's a positive time for gains, desires, wish fulfillment. Also, the impact on the 11th house means that some friends from the past can come back into your life, or you may meet old friends at this time. Now, the aspect on the 3rd house is also very positive. The 3rd house is the house of energy, motivation, and self-effort. So if you put a lot of effort with dedication into anything right now, it's going to have very positive results. So if you put an effort to, for your health, it's going to have a very positive result as well. If you put efforts into growing your social circle or your network group, professional network, that can have very positive results as well. So put some positive effort into maintaining your health. That can have a very positive effect also. So the impact on the 3rd house of effort, self-effort, is a wonderful aspect to have from Jupiter, because no matter what you put your effort on or what you dedicate yourself to doing, any task that you take on doing at this time will always have very positive results. So this is a good transit for the Virgo individual. Libra, Jupiter retrogrades in your 6th house. Libra, Jupiter is retrograding in your 6th house, but it also owns your 3rd house. Now, Jupiter is a functional malefic for Libra, and the 6th house denotes your health, your co-workers, and enemies. So this is the time where you need to take care of your health, especially your eating habits, because the 2nd house is also getting activated or being aspected by Jupiter at this time. The retrograde Jupiter in the 6th house means that it will slow down your digestion at this time, and so it might give you some digestion issues at this time. So be very careful what you're eating and take care of your health at this time. The aspect on the 10th house as well as the 2nd house at this time means it's a very positive time for your career and your income. The aspect on the 3rd house, denotes your effort, your hard work, your initiatives. So make sure that you take full benefit or advantage of the aspect on the third house. Keep your dedication and your effort in your career going. Make sure it's very positive, effort and the dedication, so you get the full benefit of the aspect on your career and income at this time. So what is the retrograde of Jupiter in the sixth house really asking you to do? Well, it's asking you to review two things in the last few months. What's your health habits been and your relationship with coworkers in the last few months? You need to review these two areas and make any corrective actions in these areas if you feel that you haven't really been handling these two issues well. If you've had some health issues, you need to make sure you take corrective actions and have better health habits. If your relationship with coworkers has been suffering, you need to make sure you change your attitude or do whatever you need to do to have a better relationship with your coworkers. So those are the two areas you need to kind of think about. The remedy for Libra people is that you make sure you have a very good physical workout regimen, whether you go to the gym, whether you do yoga, or whether you just go for a daily walk. You really need to do that in order to take care of the negative aspect that the retrograde Jupiter will have on your health at this time. Scorpio, Jupiter retrogrades in your fifth house. Scorpio, Jupiter is retrograde in your fifth house, but it also owns your second house. The fifth house represents your children, education, your love life, general happiness, hobbies, and new ideas. Jupiter's transit in the fifth house is a very good one for Scorpio because from the fifth house, it aspects the ninth, 11th, and the first house, which represent luck, gains, and you yourself, respectively. And Jupiter also owns the finance house for Scorpio. So Scorpio needs to take full advantage of this transit by thinking of new ideas, reaching out to new people, and generally thinking of ways to improve their career by creating new professional networks. But this retrograde Jupiter in the fifth house is asking Scorpio to review their behaviors and attitude over the last few months in relationship to their children and loved ones, and also learning new skills. In your quest for material wealth and desires, you may have hurt others or you may have neglected to increase your knowledge or learn new skills that are very necessary for you to get ahead. That's why Jupiter is retrograding at this time. You need to think about all these things, make all the necessary corrections and adjustments in your own attitude, and then get the full benefit of Jupiter later. Sagittarius, Jupiter retrogrades in your fourth house. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your ascendant lord and it's retrograding in your fourth house. The fourth house signifies your mental happiness, the happiness at home. And retrograde of your own ascendant lord in the fourth house means that you now need to think about all those issues in your life that are necessary to maintain happiness at home as well as your own mental happiness. Focus back on the last few months and your behavior and your own mental happiness in the last few months and see what else you could have done or you need to do in order to stay more mentally happy, or if you did everything that you needed to make sure that people within your household were happy with you and your behavior. If not, take the corrective action. If there's any real estate matters that you're involved with, probably not a good time to take care of them at this time. Well, Jupiter is retrograde in the fourth house. Probably a better time to do them is when Jupiter goes back in the direct motion. It's a good time for your career as long as you apply yourself with dedication and work hard. Especially good time in your career if you work with any foreign entities or foreign companies, because the 12th house is getting aspected, but the 12th house aspect also means it's probably a very expensive time for you and you may be overspending on expenses of all kinds, especially those relating to things that you use within the house or some luxury items as well. Capricorn, Jupiter retrogrades in your third house. Capricorn, Jupiter is retrograde in your third house and it also owns the 12th house. A retrograde Jupiter in the third house may slow down your initiatives, your energy, and actually act as a demotivator of sorts. You may not feel like doing anything or putting any effort in new things at this time. The aspect on the 7th house will be good for marital or business relationships. The 12th house ownership indicates high spending at this time. The combined impact of the 3rd, 9th, and 12th house indicates lots of travel during this transit. The 3rd house also signifies younger siblings, and the 11th house signifies older siblings. So during this time, you may be spending a lot of time with your siblings, or you may be focused on a lot of these relationship issues that you may be having with your siblings. Retrograde Jupiter in the 3rd house means that you may need to go back and focus on the last few months and the relationship you've had with your siblings, and determine if there's something that still needs to get done to manage these relationships better, or if there was tasks that you still need to do to maintain these relationships with your siblings, as well as if there was an attitude change that you need, is there a behavioral change that you need to do, or simply just put more effort into the relationship you have with your siblings or even neighbors. The 3rd house also indicates neighbors. So that's what the retrograde Jupiter means, to go back, review your own behaviors, attitudes, or even simply tasks that you think, you didn't handle something correctly. And so now you need to go back and revisit your relationship matters with your siblings. Or it just actually might mean that you get together with your siblings and you're just focused on, issues from the past, not issues in a bad way, but just things on the past, and you kind of reminisce about the past with your siblings. Aquarius, Jupiter retrogrades in your 2nd house. Aquarius, Jupiter is retrograde in your 2nd house, and Jupiter also owns the 11th house. So the 2nd house relates to finance, savings, family, communication, and food. And the 11th house is all about gains and desires, friendship, network, and older siblings. So basically both houses represent almost the same thing, which is basically finance and relationships. Now, retrograde Jupiter in the 2nd house is giving Aquarius a chance to think about their actions and behaviors in the last few months about their finance and family relationships. Some of the things that they may need to review is if they've managed the family relationships well, or if they've managed their finances well. They need to think about if there's any tasks that they still haven't completed that they should have done in the last few months. Regarding both of these items like finance and family, they need to do something back a few months ago that they still haven't done, and maybe do it now while Jupiter is retrograde, giving them the chance to review these things and then do them or make corrective actions regarding these items. Because the 8th house is getting aspected at this time along with the money houses, it's probably not a good time to make any investment decisions or impulsive decisions regarding the handling of their finance and money. Now, even though the 10th house is getting activated and that's their career house, so it's probably a good time for their career, or it's probably a good time to make money. But again, like I said, investments they need to think through before they make any changes. Now, because the 8th house is getting impacted, they need to take very good care of their health, because both the 6th and the 8th house are getting aspected. And because the retrograde is happening in the 2nd house, the 2nd house relates to the food we eat. So they need to be very careful about their eating habits. Digestion and health issues is a big concern right now. Like I mentioned, make sure you're eating very healthy food that agrees with you instead of just taking chances with food. So make sure you're eating very healthy and taking very, very good care of your health. Pisces, Jupiter is your ascendant lord. It retrogrades in your own ascendant house. Pisces, Jupiter is your ascendant lord, and right now it's retrograde in your ascendant house, but it also owns the 10th house for you. The ascendant house signifies you, yourself, your physical body. So this retrograde motion of Jupiter in the ascendant house can give you some physical problems as well as some mental stress. This stress could be related to your career, and you may feel the lack of energy and a sense of mental exhaustion at this time. Retrograde Jupiter in the ascendant house is giving you a chance to rethink about yourself, your behaviors and actions over the last few months that you feel you could have handled better, or there may have been tasks that you feel you should have completed that you didn't complete. You need to face the facts about yourself truthfully and honestly, and make whatever corrections you need to make in yourself, either about your behaviors or performing certain tasks, and then move ahead. However, the aspects of Jupiter from the first house are pretty good, so you will enjoy good relationship with your children and love life, and get very good support from your spouse as well as business partners at this time. Since the ninth house is getting aspected, make sure you share a very good relationship with your father, gurus, and coaches, mentors, to make sure you keep the luck factor activated during this critical time. Pisces, even though your income will be stable during this time, you still may stay very stressed about your job or your business. So practicing meditation during this time would be a wonderful remedy for you to do. This brings me to the end of my video. Everybody, good luck on this transit. Stay safe, and I'll see you on my next video. Goodbye for now.